The School of Hard Knocks is a fantastic episode, but it's amazing in a way very unique to it. Yes, it's awesome the way many other fantastic episodes are awesome. It's well written, well paced, has a great storyboard, all the ingredients for an outstanding episode, but it also has the trait of being an interesting meta-take on the Pokemon anime itself. What? Yeah, there's quite a bit to talk about and unpack here, so let's jump in. We start things off in this foggy forest. There isn't a whole lot story-wise happening in the beginning, but that isn't much of an issue right now because wow is it really visually engaging. I'm going to talk about this a lot in this video, but man does this episode look great. Like, compare this to the previous episode we talked about. It's actually kind of interesting how they contrast. In Wings and Things, the beginning was entirely plot that was explained in a textbook by-the-number way visually. Meanwhile, this episode starts off with very little plot, but gives us something so visually entertaining instead. Considering the main goal of being fun, this approach definitely works better for this series. Instead of in plot, the substance of the start is mostly in the character dynamics. It's kind of hard to comprehend this with 20 years behind us, but this is very early in the series, and the cement of Ash, Misty, and Brock's character relationships are still very much wet. While there's still some early Pokemon weirdness, it's still an overall good display of how these characters tick and bounce off each other. Misty in particular is really solid. She still has that fiery outspokenness to her that later parts of the series phase away due to the whole having a character development. Still, in this early part, it's fun to see. It's even more fun since she's a highlight of the episode in general, though we'll get to her great moments later. All this to say that while this beginning doesn't get our plot kicked off immediately, it's still a good start to the episode. The plot doesn't pause forever though, as things really start to kick off when we meet the schoolboys testing Joe. This episode isn't very straightforward with what's going on at first, but in this case that's a good thing. It builds up the intrigue and sense of mystery that hooks the audience to keep them watching. On top of that, this part uses our protagonist well. Ash immediately wanting to throw hands, in addition to being fun, makes sense for the character. And I don't mean that in a retrospective way where we know Ash is a throw down first, ask questions later guy. I mean that within only the story that's been established so far. One of the ideas that Pokemon has been playing around with in these early episodes is the dynamic between the haves and the have-nots. May I remind you that our main rivalry is between poor rural boy Ash Ketchum and the grandson of the world-famous Pokemon Professor Oak, Gary Oak. So Ash's response here? Yeah, that checks out, even in these early days. This also gives us some good character stuff between Ash and Misty. Ash telling her to back off and then Misty's response is great, especially Misty's response, which is incredibly funny.
It's very brave of you to take on all five by yourself. I'll be here on the sidelines cheering you on, waiting to drag your carcass away at the end. Show 'em you're a badass!
Things start to clear up once the fog clears out, as well as after Misty pops out that random flyer. Yeah, that probably could have been explained a bit more. That flyer also brings me to one of the very few negative points of this episode. Yeah, you knew this was coming. The 4Kids edits. There was a lot of Japanese writing in this one, and 4Kids had their censors machine up and running for it. It looks really bad, like my goodness. Most of the edits are very noticeably different from the rest of the scene, and it's just distracting. This weird prune can thing is always my go-to personal example of a bad 4Kids edit, but there's just so much more. There's this spring water, the Pokeballs here that cover the training room sign to make it look like an elevator, the entire flyer that's obviously just a JPEG of the school with some blurred out French nonsense at the bottom. Really the only one that isn't too egregious is this photo where they edit out the Gasa. Love umbrella. Basically the Japanese equivalent to drawing you and your partner's initials inside a heart if you've ever seen that on a tree. It's not deal breaking or anything, it doesn't hurt the episode in any meaningful way since ultimately it doesn't affect the plot negatively, but still it's not good. Speaking of the plot, it's time for me to get back to it. The basic gist is that this is a Pokemon prep school where rich kids go to learn how to be a Pokemon trainer. It's incredibly prestigious and equally rigorous. They're taught Pokemon structurally, they learn about levels and move pools, and I'm sure all those EV and IV nonsense as well. This setup gets us to our main conflict of Ash and Company versus these prep school jerks. They're all kind of pretentious and think that they're better than our gang since they have so much more technical knowledge on Pokemon training. I'll get to the meta angle that makes this super interesting later, but even at a surface level of just book training versus real-world experience when it comes to truly understanding Pokemon is good. It's helped by the fact that Joey's constantly going on about how reaching certain achievements at the school is equivalent to a certain amount of badges, which grinds on the gears of Ash, who has 2 badges, and Misty, who's a gym leader. In addition to that theme, I also want to briefly talk about another aspect of this episode. It's cultural commentary. Now, I'm not an authority on this on account of being an American and not Japanese in the slightest, but I do know enough to at least understand that this cutthroat, rigorous schooling that's on display here can be seen as a commentary on Japanese cram school culture. I won't go too deep because, again, not actually knowledgeable enough to do that, but it's still cool to see a 90s show like this one take a negative stance towards this serious topic that even today isn't pushed back on enough. All these larger themes and darker tones of the episode start to make a lot more sense when you consider who wrote this. Takeshi Shudo. This name is one you should be familiar with. If you don't know, he was the head writer and series creator of the original Pokemon anime, a man who is very important to this series. He often gets the title of the father of the Pokemon anime, and it's a title that is definitely earned. So much of that weird, unique vibe of the original series of Pokemon is traced back to him. His episodes always had a little more to them, a little more atmosphere, a little more lore, a little more to say, and this episode is a great highlight of that, as it has all those things. To add on top of that, we have the storyboard and animation done by fan favorites Yuji Sada and Akihiro Tamagawa. God, this episode is gorgeous. Have I gushed about how awesome Yuji Sada is in these videos enough yet? He's just so good at his job. Like, going from Wings and Things to this episode is just... holy moly, I forgot how much I was missing in that episode. There's just so much creativity and excitement in all of his framings and setups. Even the most basic scene looks so appealing. Just look at these 2 images of our protagonists and the COD together, side by side. The difference is night and day. Wings and Things has everyone all in these perfect straight lines and these basic sad faces. Compare that to this episode. Just look at this. Action line, action line, action line. Heck, even Joe, the one person in the shot you'd be okay with just posing normally, also has a small little action line. Oh, and the faces. They convey just so much more emotion. Look, I swear there are other good storyboard artists in the series, but man, does the Sada stuff just stand out. Sorry, I got distracted again. After Joe gives the lowdown on how this school works and about Giselle being the ringleader, Macy decides to, oh hey Team Rocket, I almost forgot about these 3. Yeah, Team Rocket is in this episode, and honestly, it doesn't use them well. They're just kind of there in the background, and then show up in the end to get beaten up. It's borderline a bad filler Team Rocket here to just pad out time and inject the episode with artificial conflict thing. But I won't go that far, since the episode outside of them is strong on its own, and Team Rocket barely puts a dent in it. Plus, they're not completely awful. This top of the bottom joke is really funny, and I gotta use it more often in conversations. Shoot, I got distracted again. What were we talking about? Misty? Yeah, Misty kind of takes over this section of the second act. Like I alluded to earlier, Misty is a highlight that gives the episode a ton of sparks in many ways, pushing the plot forward, giving it personal stakes, and even giving it some character and humor with her reaction to Ash and Brock's reaction to Giselle. More importantly though, this section gives it the single most important scene in the entire episode, Joe facing the Cerulean Gym in the battle simulator. Look familiar? It should, because it looks almost identical to the battle screen from the original Game Boy games. This was a very intentional detail. It's this scene that blows the episode open and finally reveals its true thesis. Because at the end of the day, this episode isn't really about Ash standing up to rich pricks, or book knowledge versus real-world experience, or even Japanese cram schools. No, what this episode is about is the Pokemon anime itself and its relationship to the game it's based on. At its core, this episode is a defense of the Pokemon anime's right to be its own thing, different from the games. It's putting its foot down and saying, look, this is an anime, that is a video game. Yes, we are based off of that video game and follow its fundamental rules. There's type matchups, birds eat worms, Mr. Pokemon Master. More experienced Pokemon will typically do better against less experienced ones, and all that jazz. But we're still our own thing, and we are allowed to take creative liberties with the world and handle its battle system differently from the games we're based on. This new twist is expressed in Misty and Joe's battle. It's pretty solid, despite its shortness. The battle really pushes the whole things on the battle simulator don't reflect the nuances of the real battle, as well as how things in the games aren't the same as in the show. Joe fails here because Misty isn't an NPC with a certain set of Pokemon at a certain level that he could just look up on Bulbapedia beforehand. She's an actual character with a background and experiences that make her Pokemon stronger than expected, something the anime can do while the games can't. This revelation, however, is sidestepped when Giselle enters the picture, as she argues that Joe's Weepinbell simply was underleveled for the match. This introduction to Giselle is another big shift, and it works great. It could be argued that this lecture by Giselle can be a bit too tell don't show, but I feel it's still solid because of how Giselle presents it. It's a great combination of fantastic visuals and great voice work that helps the bit do double duty of reframing what went wrong for Joe back to the prep school's worldview, and introducing Giselle as being a heightened version of the school's rough combination of intelligence and superiority complex. It's those things that make Giselle a great antagonist. The way she talks on about Pokemon levels and experience with such a smart aleck sense to it really pushes the textbook Pokemon knowledge versus real-world Pokemon experience ideas so much. She increases the antagonistic attitude towards Ash and the crew almost with just her presence, compounded further by her ganking Misty Starmie with an overleveled rock type. All this makes her a real menace and far more than just a pretty face. Though, speaking of pretty face, I should probably address this before we get to the end. Ash's, hormone situation. Yeah, it's weird. It's just so very out of character for Ash, considering how often he's portrayed as dense AF on matters of the heart. You just don't expect him to be horny on main for this random character of the day. Chalk it up to early season 1 straightness, I suppose. Though, looking at it on the bright side though, this episode scores some more uniqueness points to make it stand out from the crowd. Soak it in, Pokemon fans. Enjoy Ash Ketchum showing outward romantic affection to someone in the series for the first... And that's the end of that sentence. That's all I was gonna say. It was just the first time. That's it. Just the first time. I was gonna say first and only time. I was not gonna say that. Tangent aside, everything comes together when the fight's taken outside by the pool. Giselle's taunting of Misty and then taunting of Ash after he steps to the plate is great fun. Once again, thanks to Asada's incredibly appealing storyboards. Seriously, it's so good. The pre-match taunting also further builds the ideas of the episode. She talks to them like a know-it-all rich bitch pep student, furthering those themes of haves versus have-nots and book knowledge versus real-world experience. But she also talks about Pokemon almost like a Smogon player, droning on about the technical in and outs, the movesets and type advantages, and especially those darn levels. It's so close to yapping about like 252 special attack, choice spec, tinted lens, Terra, whatever. And the best part of it is that these two ways of looking at it, textual and meta, complement each other. It was a very smart idea to have the story take place in a snobby prep school. When the fight begins, it looks like it's going to be more of the same. Kubo takes Pikachu and Ash to town here, but Pikachu has a trick up his sleeve, or wherever Pikachu hides stuff, I don't really know. They know that Giselle is fighting based on what the textbook says about how this fight is supposed to go, how this fight would go if it was the games. So instead, they scrap. Pikachu uses tactics and techniques that you wouldn't expect, like twisting Cubot's skull helmet the other way around and having the boomerang hit itself back on the return. And this out-of-the-box method works. They win by doing the kind of things that can't be done in the simulator, things that can't be done in the games. In the ultimate victory of this episode, Ash, the anime original character, wins the fight in a way that can only be done in the anime. And then Team Rocket shows up in the last 2 minutes to get beat up or whatever. At the end of the day, there's nothing quite like the School of Hard Knocks. It's an episode that's unabashedly Pokemon anime. It's a defense and celebration of what makes it special. It's a rally cry against those who bemoan and belittle the show for not being one-to-one accurate to the games. I honestly don't know how anyone can talk about game mechanics and levels and such in any ways that suggest the anime is in favor of it based on this episode, though that hasn't stopped many from doing so. Even still, putting the meta stuff aside, it still looks great, has fantastic world building, a unique atmosphere, and all the hallmarks of a great episode. But those things that just weren't possible to see on the small Game Boy screen are made even better when the episode makes itself specifically about that Game Boy. It's one of Kanto's best and brightest, and a classic like no other in the series. Hey all, Dan here. Don't be afraid of the new profile pic, it's still the same me. Thank you for watching this video. It admittedly came out a little later than I would have liked, and that was just pure procrastination on my part. I could have gotten this thing out a lot sooner. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it. It's a fun episode to talk about, and summer is kind of coming to a close here. I think I only got one more Anipoke Assortment left to move before the school year starts, but we'll get there when we get there, so hope you look forward to seeing that later in this month. So, like I said, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.